What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care and also co-sponsored by Dads Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And as part of that collaboration last year, I was part of a team that reached out to over 100,000 fathers around the world last year. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. It is Black Canada Talking Time. It is June. I was going to say June, January 30th. It's not warm enough to be called June out there these days. So it's January 30th, and we're looking forward to another epic conversation called Black Canada Talking. And Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides the Black Canadian their opportunity to give their takes and POVs that are importance and on stories that are of importance to them. And every other week we do a roundtable. Today we have two of our three regular panelists. Unfortunately, Sarah Oyango cannot join us. She's not feeling well, but we have El Jones and Cesar. So let's go first with El Jones. How we doing, El?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are things in your world?
Good. I was watching the first Black Canadian Science Conference, so the BSTEM conference.
Okay.
So it's got everything from science representations from youth all the way up to senior scientists, Black scientists in Canada presenting. So
wow,
that started today and it's until February 2nd. So
is it each day?
Yeah, it's every day. So
wow.
Today was the opening, and then there's like plenary sessions with scientists, but there's kids like science fair projects, there's young students presenting, and then keynotes from scientists, and also international scientists as well. So it's the BSTEM conference, Black Excellence STEM conference.
Very nice. Very nice. Any things of interest that you've caught so far?
The science fair was nice. I was watching kids today, so they just had to sit in their Zoom rooms and then like present every time people came. So those kids had to work hard, and there was everything from like designing a module to manage space debris to devices that like water your plants and detect moisture in the soil, to kids designing masks with like Bluetooths, studies of the high risk of breast cancer. Like there was all kinds of stuff. How animals listen to music. So there was 12 different projects from kids from either the Imatep Legacy Project, or I forget what it's called in Toronto area,
right,
where they teach Black kids. So they partner Black kids up. So there was 12 projects. So it was really good. Yeah.
Well, thanks to bring at least to my attention. I had no idea of this. So I'm going to have to do some researching and find out and see if I can catch some of it online in the next few days. And how's the world of education treating you?
It's good. We were saying this before. We're supposed to go back in person this week, but yeah, I don't know. It's pretty good. Just teaching courses.
Yeah. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, in our chat before we went live, you're going to be doing it totally online for the rest of the semester?
Yeah, I only have one course this semester, just because just how course release works. So we just agreed that we would stay online. And also I have some students that can't access the course if it's not online. So we just all agreed. But we are supposed to be back in person. So
okay.
But yeah, I have some incarcerated students. So they need to hear the lecture. So if we go in person, they can't really hear it.
Actually, that's a good segue. I'm having a conversation next week, and I don't know if you've heard the organization, but I'm pretty sure got two people from Keep Six.
Yes.
They are going to be on Black Canada Talking next week. Have they ever communicated out to you?
I know. So they do work in like workforce. So I know some of the people, so in some of the institutions. So I know some of the guys that they work with.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd love them to introduce them to you because they need to know you. All right. Good stuff. Cesar is with us. Look at that shirt, people. Family, check that shirt out, eh? Now he's going to get up. Now he's going to give us the full look. It's in my DNA.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
He's in full. Cesar, how are we doing today?
We're good, Dr. Vibe, Sister L, Luke, BIA Media, Black Community, Black Family Worldwide. Yeah, we're good. The year started well. Birthday this week, so 1 year older, but really just another day, another week, another month. standing up for the cause. And projects advancing, work, but most important of all, being a husband and being a father, always first.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, let's get into our conversation. Yeah, in a few days, there's something called Black History Month. Have you heard of it before? Like, so I thought, and we'll be totally honest here, before we started live, going, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? We'll say, well, we will get to the Freedom Convoy. We will get to that. But I said, yeah, Black History Month. Yeah, it's coming up. And it's so, are any of you involved in any events? What are your thoughts coming up with Black History Month? Who'd be ready to share first?
Cecile, do you want me to go first or you want to go ahead?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I need Luke, feel free to show. Basically, I will be doing the launching of Black History Month at the University of Ottawa with the Faculty of Arts in an event. The importance of celebrating Black History Month. The English session will be at 10 a.m. and the French session, la version francophone, will be at 3 p.m. You can find the link on the Faculty of Arts list of events, or basically we can probably even put it in the comments, something like that. Long story short, I think first and foremost, of course, Black History Month, and I mean, I will be saying it next week. Black History Month is not a matter of month. I don't need to say that. We know that. It's every day. And it's definitely not limited to slavery and colonization, nor is it limited to these heroes behind me, or talking about Michael Jean and Rosa Parks. There are so many figures, and many of them that we do not know, but more importantly than not, Black History Month starts in the home. In the home, whether it is a Black child, whether it's two Black parents, one parent is Black, the Black child is adopted, etc., etc. And when I say Black, my definition of Black is from the darkest to the mixed with blonde hair and green eyes. You're this African, you Black. So really, we need to remember that. And in terms of Ottawa, there are other events that are, of course, happening, notably with Black History Ottawa as an organization. But I will be doing my part. And this is actually the first day of events with the University of Ottawa. There will be another event, more like a conference session as well, question and answer towards the end of the month of February between me and the personnel of the faculty.
Okay.
Elle, what events are you slated to be partaking in, if any? Because I can't make an assumption for Black History Month.
I have something at Queen's. I have a law thing, talks all over. I don't know. I can't even keep track of the panels, but there's like a lot of talks. So all through the month, Black Employment Month.
and it's interesting you mentioned there's a lot of talk. Are we seeing more action compared to a year ago, Black History Month? Because again, well, Elle's just trying to shaking her because obviously we're in a virtual world, which for many people may say that limits the amount of action. But Elle, you sort of like you nodded your head. Why did you nod your head like that?
Well, no, I mean, it's just, I think it's always kind of the same, right? There's that dilemma, and people are sort of widespread at this point where they're sort of reluctant to invite you in February, but then that's where the funding is, right? So, so people kind of be like, oh, I feel bad. Like, I know we shouldn't have all our Black speakers in February. Like, people keep telling us this, but that's where there's like a will to have it. So you always end up with like everything anyway, even if people are aware of that. No, I mean, one of my cynical jokes is that, Black History Month is when we honor dead radical Black people while shaming the live radical Black people in our own communities, So, like, once you're safely dead, then it's all, they're amazing radical. But, of course, there's all kinds of radical people being shunned in our communities, being excluded from, like, the big events, not being allowed to talk because they're troublemakers, right? So this is, of course, why some people have advocated for a different month, which is Black August, which is the Revolutionary Month. So Black August, which, of course, begins with Emancipation Day. So many revolutionary Black events occurred in that month, from the Nat Turner Rebellion, rebellion, the Haitian Rebellion is in August. Like the first enslaved people to hit the shores of Virginia, and of course in August. Many birthdays, like Du Bois's birthday, Garvey's birthday. Like there's just so many things that happen in August. So starting in the 1970s, beginning in the prisons in San Quentin, the original BLM, which was the Black Liberation Movement, advocated for August as a month that would actually focus our minds on revolution and like the cost of that, to counter the ways that Black History Month, even in the 70s, has often become a catalog of firsts. And then kente drumming and the list of things, which isn't to like diminish it. We had to actually fight to get Black History Month, particularly in Canada. I mean, when I was growing up, and I ain't that old, and we didn't have Black History Month in Winnipeg at all. Like there was nothing in the schools. But like it was not recognized at all. And I'm sure they do now. But even when I was in school, like we didn't even have it. So I'm not gonna put the whole thing down. But the issue is, of course, as usual with anything Black, the difference between observing something and recognizing it and like putting that into practice is different. And then of course just like all the marketing that goes along with it, like people making t-shirts. And I guess I know people gotta eat, but like let's think carefully about what we're putting on our t-shirts, people. Like if we're making Black History Month t-shirts, like let's try and put people who have contributed to Black life, like not just like let's try and make some judicious choices is all I'm gonna say there. So yeah, I don't know, I like to think about where I'll say the same thing on Emancipation Day, like where are we right now, like how did we get here, who shed blood to get us here, and like what are we supposed to be doing to bring us further. And if things aren't concentrated on that, then I find them of limited utility to Black people. So many people call Black History Month Black Liberation Month and remind us that this is what we're supposed to be focused on, like the need for collective action and not just food, fun, and fashion, right? Like so
I like that. Food, fun, and fashion. Cesar, talk to me.
Well, I mean, Sister L is correct. I mean, I'm not going to go too deep into this because, AKA, you have to attend the presentation on Tuesday. But no, Sister L is correct. We have to be honest with ourselves that, first of all, the fact that Black History Month being February is not a discredit to its origins, but we cannot dismiss the value of what it would be like in August as well. We're speaking of symbolism, but there's quite a difference in terms of what is accepted today in mainstream society regarding Black History Month being February, aka, when white CEOs become woke, when suddenly Kofi and Jamal become in, aka, the sister with the weird hair becomes very like, it's like she is a VIP, it's her month. And then March 1st come and you just become an N-word. So we have to be mindful of that. And also because for too many Black people, Black History Month becomes very much a performative month, even for them. But where were they before February 1st? And where are they after February 28th or 29th? Ultimately, it's not, that's why I always say, as in terms of my message, the fact that the date is given in February is little to the fact of what do Black people really do to stand up all year long, especially in their own homes. You don't get to raise the fist and scream Black History Month, and then you go back to pray to white Jesus or Arab Allah, wondering why they don't respect you. Just as at the same time, you can't be raising the fist in front of Black people, but then you go ass kissing to the white boss, to the white colleagues, to the non-Black others in order to be included, in order to fit in. It becomes a problem. And at the end of the day, even other people, they come to see it. They come to not respect us. Ultimately, it's about dignity. And that dignity comes with respect in terms of not so much what we do in terms of in front of non-Blacks, but what we do in terms of ourselves looking at ourselves in front of the mirror, ourselves having that honest conversation, as we talk about so often, within the community, within our own people, in terms of who do we really say represent us versus who is claimed to represent us, but they're never in the struggle. They say the nice words, but they don't dare to say the truthful words. You see what I mean? I mean, let's be honest. We can say Black History Month. We can say Black Lives Matter. We can say Kunta Kinte and Wakanda, but we can't lie. We have a lot of black skin, white mask in the Black community.
Al, you want to add anything to that? Cesar's laying it down.
I don't know if there's anything to add, really. I mean, if we want to sort of segue into the next topic, which is the convoy, you know, like a lot of people are defending that by saying, oh, you know, it's not racist, even though there's people with Swazi flags, like swastikas. There's like, you know, Maxime Bernier, Paul Frome is at these events, who's like a straight up Nazi, like this isn't hyperbole, like he's an actual Nazi, like, you know. So despite the presence of so many like actual fascists, like actual neo-Nazis, there are Black people that are online like defending this and denying that it's racist, and then allowing this discourse.
You're kidding me.
Oh God, yeah,
100%.
there was a Black lawyer speaking last week.
100%.
And I'm not going to say his name, but a certain Black lawyer who represents Black families was out last week standing beside Maxime Bernier and saying to white people that a vaccine passport is the same thing as slavery and the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And there are Black people. This is why we need to know our history, right? Because you actually have Black people saying and allowing white people to say and agreeing with white people that having to show your vaccine passport, like when you go to a restaurant or whatever, is the exact same like slave catchers for Black people. That is Black people that do not know their own history.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we're not doing our job in Black History Month to teach people about, and also like the white adjacency of so many people that, you know, so many Black people just fall into like whiteness in like particular ways, right? So I'm like, I don't care. I mean, it's not my business what other people put in their bodies to a large extent. I don't go around policing people. But if you're going to go publicly and stand beside white supremacists, like my brother, like you better have, like you should be thinking about that. Like at least keep your discourse to the Black community, right? Like why do you want to go up and legitimate and be the Black friend for a bunch of neo-Nazis and white nationalists? Like, what are you getting out of this?
So what? Go ahead, Cesar, if you want to add to that.
I have so much to say. I've been involved. I've been involved in conversations and exchanges online and on the phone. You know, with Black activists, with Black and Indigenous people online, with Black, Indigenous, and white senior leaders and, you know, corporate leaders, etc. Look, I absolutely support the Freedom Convoy in being a great opportunity to see how white privilege and white fragility is visible to all of us. We are living in this beautiful country of Canada. Of course, it depends, you know, where you are staying and, of course, your skin color. We're living in this beautiful country of Canada where very recently Indigenous people were protesting on the streets and blocking roads, and many of those same truckers were very happy for police to be muscular on them and to show them out of the way. Many of these truckers were openly racist. The Toronto Star, which cannot be accused of being a liberal newspaper, even denounced that in an article. We are living in this Canada where Black people who were notably blocking streets in the name of Black Lives Matter, we're having a lot of these so-called non-racist white people calling for police to beat them up, to remove them forcibly, to throw those savages in jail. And now we're having this convoy, first an illegal protest. It's an illegal protest, number one. 90% of truckers are vaccinated. So this is not even a matter of majority of truckers being part of this movement. It is not. There are truckers who have openly talked about not being associated. They don't represent them. And to make it worse, it's very important to understand this. I do agree with the convoy, the people in the convoy, on one principle that they're tired of, you know, the restrictions and everything you want. It's been 2 years. Who isn't? Everybody is. Everybody is, but there are a bunch of crybabies, fragile, donut revolutionaries, Tim Hortons, coffee drinking every day, Netflix watching, wannabe revolutionaries What are they going to do? The U.S. also wants all the truckers to be vaccinated, number one. So on a federal level, even the U.S. wants all truckers to be vaccinated, and 90% of truckers are vaccinated. At a provincial level, the lack of political education is flagrant because the mandates and the restrictions are not even coming from Trudeau. It's coming from the provinces. And these people arrived in Ottawa. I live in Ottawa. I was there Friday night. I am telling you, I was there Friday night. I'm a big guy. I'm over 300 pounds, 6'2", with martial arts experience, having represented Canada across the world. And I'm telling you, in many of these places, I'm not saying there were no Black people there. I'm not saying there were no Indigenous people there, because there were, but I did not see them. And I was all the way to Chateau Laurier. So it wasn't an environment where you truly felt welcome between those flags, some of these, racist flags. And some people try to say that it's just 2 or 3 flags. No, it wasn't just 2 or 3 flags. It wasn't just 2 or 3 people. I've never seen so many Canadian and Quebec flags and nationalistic flags, and of course racist flags all at once. And it wasn't Canada Day. It was basically Canada Day of the white fragility in winter. So we have to understand something here. As our great leader Thomas Sankara said, a Black person, especially a Black soldier who is not educated in ideology and politics of Blackness, is a dangerous element that the enemy will use. Because as Sister L just said, these white supremacists are getting the Black friends right there. I'm not racist. Look at all these Black people who showed up. And of course, we know this with Black people. What's one of the best ways to sucker Black people to join anything? Say the word freedom. Suddenly you have Black people are like, oh, he said freedom, she said freedom. Donald Trump had Black people. The racist president in Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, of the far-right movement. He's not a conservative. He's far-right military. He has Black people who support him, even though he calls Black people monkeys. In Italy, the right-wing government, they have Black people. In France, Eric Zemmour, he has Black people. These separatist movements across Europe, from Hungary to Britain, they do have some Black people who support them. The fact of being Black doesn't mean it's so racist, but when your organizers have been proven to have racist affiliations and have had comments against Indigenous and Black people, and that in your movement, because they are correct on one thing, it is not fair to pretend the whole convoy. First of all, it's not a freedom convoy. That's some bullshit title. The convoy of these minority truckers, the fact that they have some racist elements doesn't mean they are all racist. 100% I agree. I know people will support them. I have friends who support them. Absolutely, that doesn't mean that everyone is racist. But how is it that your movement has people who are openly racist feeling they can join in? How is it that your movement is only supported in terms of federal politics by, what's his name? The Tool, Erin O'Toole, who doesn't recognize systemic racism, and by Maxime Bernier, aka wannabe Donald Trump of the North and openly racist, openly anti-immigration, etc. You literally have Black people supporting a movement that's backed by political parties that, if they were in power, not only they would make it harder to be Black, but they will take quite a pleasure in limiting to preventing Black people not only from coming to Canada, but also from being able to exercise their rights and to have the freedoms. Like, you literally have Black people, and even the white people are joining in, talking about freedom. What about the situation in Congo? What about the situation in Haiti? What about the situation in Syria, Iraq, Palestine, the Uyghur and all that? And these people are talking about freedom? They get their 3 meals a day. They get a shower every day. They get Netflix. They get coffee. They get Tim Hortons. What are they oppressed? What's oppressing them? The anti-science and anti-democracy is very
Cesar, L wants to jump in.
Sorry, I had to jump in, but
no, please.
So for example, they're like, well, we don't want to have to get vaccines to come across the border. Meanwhile, Black people are dying crossing the border in snow because you want to shut down your barn in Emerson and make sure that Black people can't literally find a place to be warm, and they're crossing the border into southern Manitoba or into southern Quebec, right? So this is the thing that gets me. I'm like, at least Black anti-vaxxers are consistent, right? Like Black people who are anti-vaxxers generally also don't vote. They usually are like, I don't feel in the census. Like they're anti-government. Like I'll give them that. Let's look at the difference between Kyrie Irving, who at least was like, I ain't getting the vaccine, not playing. He shut up about it. He's just like, if I'm not playing, then I'm not playing. That is a whole different than Novak, who's like, I'm not going to get vaccinated, but then I'm going to try and come into Australia. I'm going to lie on my visa. I'm going to have a COVID test that's probably dubious and then be out in public with kids the day after my supposed test. And I'm going to violate your immigration laws. Like that is whiteness. I'm like,
Yep.
Kyrie Irving as a Black person was like, I'm going to make my decision and take my licks. And I'm like, I'm not like, it's not my decision, but you did what you wanted to do and you took the consequences.
Yep.
White people in their fragility and privilege are like, I'm going to take a choice, but then I can't just sit in my choice and be like, I guess if I don't do this, I won't have a job. I guess I'm not crossing the border then. They're like, no, you have to change for me. And like, they don't stand with us on that though. So these same people that are bitching about the stuff now, where are they on carding? Like, you don't want to be checked, right? Like, oh, suddenly show your, I have to go to a restaurant and show my pass. But none of these people give an SH that we're being carded. In fact, they think we should be carded. It's policing for you and not for them, which is whiteness, right? White people want us police. Carding's fine. Street checks are fine. Surveillance of our neighborhood is fine. TABIS is fine. Send the cops into our neighborhoods. But somebody tells you have to get a vaccine and suddenly it's a crisis. Then we can treat them totally differently. So we have to, look, I wrote a defunding report on defunding the police. Every Black person commits a crime, don't even live in this country. People are like, oh, they're shooting themselves in Chicago. This idiot's talking about defund the police in Halifax. Like, what about this person with a gun in Chicago? Man, that person ain't even in the country, never mind the city. But you're not supposed to denounce people in your own goddamn movement. So you can't ask white people to say, I'm not saying you're all racist, but I'm saying there's racists around you. What do Black people have to do when a Black person commits a crime or is extreme or whatever? We have to stand there and be like, oh, they don't speak for me. Every Muslim on earth has to say, oh, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not an extremist. We denounce ISIS. We denounce the Taliban. Otherwise you get associated. But white people, how dare you? Just because somebody has a swastika flag doesn't mean that I'm not even going to listen to that. And it's like, why don't you have to? Where's the moderate whites? We have to be moderate Blacks and moderate Muslims and moderate everything. Where's the moderate whites have to call this out in their movement? And then you saw the Ottawa police. See, this is why I didn't want to talk about this. Then you saw the Ottawa police. Oh, people need space to grieve and complain. And do they say that?
The hypocrisy is magnificent.
But that's what I'm like. I will be, if you're consistent, then I might disagree with you, but I will say at least you're consistent. If you're like, I hate the government, if you're like, I don't engage with government, I don't take anything from government, and I don't think the government has the right to do this, I'm like, okay, consistent position. I can respect it as a position. That doesn't mean I agree with it, but I can at least respect that you had a principle, even if I think it's wrong-headed. But when you're like, everybody else gets to be policed, I have no problem with that. No problem with border policing for Black people. No problem with border policing for Muslim people. No problem with all of this. Police, great. Bring them in. I love the cops. Blue lives matter. Thin blue line. All of it until it's them.
Yep.
And they make their little freedom convoy and they get to, did you see how they stole food from homeless people?
Absolutely. The Shepherds of Good Hope and my God, this other place, the harassing of staff, the bullying of staff. These are the so-called convoy of, like some people online were arguing with me. This is about unity, solidarity, love, compassion, and all that. The desecration of the Terry Fox statue, the tomb of the unknown soldier, the bullying of staff at Rideau Center and Security Mall, and also Shepherds of Good Hope, etc., etc., etc. Again, oh no, those are fringe elements. Those are small numbers of people. But when it comes to any protest that involves Black people, indigenous, aka non-white identities, they get all lumped together. And if I can add something important here, look, let's be honest here. The people protesting, like I said, I do agree with them in terms of the fatigue that comes with 2 years ongoing. But this is not something exclusive to Canada. There is a selfishness of them in terms of the notion of individual rights versus public health and community living. Basically, a lot of them deserve to live on their own island or in the woods but they will come back to society, but they don't want to accept the rules of society. At the same time, many of them being anti-Trudeau, anti-government, how many returned the checks that Trudeau sent them because they lost their job or because they couldn't work? The hypocrisy is real. Just as at the same time, these are the same people who will expect to get benefits or government assistance when needed. So really, it's just a hypocrisy in terms of if the government is good to them, they'll embrace it, just like you were saying. If police is good to them, they'll embrace it. If police has to enforce rules, if healthcare has to enforce rules that they don't like, suddenly it's about freedom. Suddenly it's about their rights. Suddenly, there was one person who was interviewed, he was talking about it's about the world of tomorrow for his daughter. I'm like, what about my daughter? This white person will probably has never known anything in terms of oppression living here in Canada and probably doesn't care or doesn't know anything in terms of the reality of Blacks, Indigenous, and doesn't have any reason to care about it in the privileges of his whiteness. Talking about the Freedom Convoy is about the world of tomorrow for his daughter. I laughed. For a lot of them, as they like to tell us Black people, why don't you just go back to Africa if you don't like it? Why don't they just go back to Europe? I mean, there are European Canadians. Let's call them what it is. Why don't they go back to Europe? Take a ship. Putin is about to invade Ukraine. Go ahead. Go fight for your ancestors. I can't even take credit for that. It's one of my friends last night who said it. The European Canadians. We need to call it what it is.
Comment here from Kevin Friday. It's a formula that goes back to the 60s in the U.S., which began with the pro-segregation of crowd conflating, quote, freedom with freedom to discriminate, which has tainted the libertarian movements in North America ever since and made it impossible for those of us who are Black and libertarian leaning to join them. Sorry.
This is the thing, because I actually do think that there's a critique of vaccine passports. I always think we should be careful about data. So I agree. I like that, should I have to upload health information into my school and they have access? But first of all, we wouldn't have to do this if people hadn't made a big deal about not obeying the rules. So if people just kept their mouths shut and silently not obeyed the rules instead of making a whole movement, if you announce, I'm not going to obey your rules and I'm not going to follow public health measures, then don't be surprised when those measures become harsh. So you would have saved yourselves a lot if you just quietly, look, the government could they're handing out $100 to everybody tomorrow. Everybody wouldn't pick it up. There's always people that don't engage in things. So I'm like, you brought this on yourselves by loudly being like, I'm not going to take public health measures, thus forcing them to enforce things like masks and stuff, which wouldn't have happened if people would just, accept the collective good. So I actually do agree. There are points that I agree with. I think we should always be wary about how data is getting used, like from policing in our jobs. I think these are real questions, but they come attached to this tantrum about being asked to respect the collective good. As Cesar has said, this is a group of people that have never stood with us. These aren't people that are out marching for other freedoms. They're not out here being like, yes, and let's give Indigenous land back. Then I would say at least you have a consistent anti-government position. That is your position. But they don't. They love the government when the government is messing with us. They want us deported. They want us off welfare, whatever. As long as the government's harming us, it's all good. It's just the first time. And what does that tell you about your life? Because I'm like, in the life of things that happened to me at work, having to show a form saying I got my vaccine is so low in the level of violence I've experienced at work. This just doesn't even make the cut of the top 5,000 things that have happened in my life that have oppressed me, taken my freedom, and many of these people who are now freedom people, the ones that actively stalk me on social media. When I'm talking about the police, they're the ones harassing me. But now suddenly they're out protesting the police.
That's why I call them donut revolutionaries. The donuts, they're freedom. Where's the nearest Tim Hortons for my coffee and donuts? That's what they are. They're not revolutionaries. They're not standing for human rights. They claim human rights with a pathetic misunderstanding of science, which is very willful, aka they will lean toward conspiracy theories and half-baked truths to fit their narrative. I mean, put yourself in my place. I am a Black man, and I was literally having an exchange with an indigenous woman supporting the protest. And I'm like, wait, those are the same white truckers who had no problem wanting police to beat up and arrest you people. And then in the nature of her arguments, when I ask for the source, she tells me Fox News. I can't make it up. It's written. It's written. It's on Facebook. I can't make it up. I can't argue with someone like that. I can't exchange. I'm like, no, honestly, this is too much. You literally have Black people who have come at me with a logic saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's ridiculous. When you think the enemy of your enemy is your friend, you just open yourself to being stabbed in the back, because your enemy never forgets that you are the enemy. Especially in the world of white supremacy, and you claiming your enemy is those who are walking with white supremacists, from the organizers to some of the people who are there on the ground. We're not saying that all the white people who are there are racist or white supremacists. Absolutely not. As I said, I have friends who are there. I have even non-white friends who are supporting this movement. So no, not everybody who's there are white supremacists. But it would be hypocritical to pretend that there is not a problem. If your movement is a movement where white supremacists feel safe to join in, there's a fundamental problem in your movement. And when in Canada 2022, you have Maxime Bernier and Erin O'Toole supporting your movement, trust me, this is not a movement that aims for the betterment of Blacks, immigrants, Indigenous, etc., etc. So if you are Black and Indigenous and you're supporting this, you basically are contributing to the probable coming of a government that will hurt you. Luckily, the vast majority of the Canadian population is not only vaccinated, but even the Trucker National Syndicate opposes this movement. So it's such a fringe minority, but with all the actions that they're doing, I wouldn't be surprised that investigations will come and some of them will reap the benefits of the disorderly conduct.
And of course, there are real issues affecting truckers, many of whom are the non-white truckers. Like there's a lot of Asian truckers. There's a lot of like South Asian truckers that have aren't getting pay, aren't getting benefits, the working conditions are really terrible. There's real things to argue with. And as Cesar said, you have 10% of people that aren't vaccinated that are taking all this media attention. Like, remember the guy in Saskatchewan with the bus that ran the stop sign and killed the busman trying to deport him? Where's his justice and freedom?
Stronghold.
He made a mistake driving. He didn't intentionally kill people, and it was tragic. Obviously, a bunch of young people died, and that is so tragic. But he didn't drive. He wasn't YOLO driving into them. He made a driving mistake. And we're 10 years in prison, deport. Get out of the country. Want to talk about freedom? Want to talk about how he wasn't trained properly? Want to talk about how we have people doing these jobs that have to have addictions because the amount of hours people, there are real issues in this field from real working people, often brown, that nobody wants to talk about. And then these people get all this attention. And again, the white media treats it so different. They'll write editorials being they have legit issues. They never say that about us. Let us burn down a police station or steal a phone, then it's we have to all denounce it. So I'm there's a mark, we have to they'll always say the same thing. We have to take these people seriously because this matters to the government. So the government, there's an angry white group and this matters and their grievances and they don't have jobs. And all this, we don't have jobs. Our youth employment rate is 4 times unemployment rate, 4 times average, but Black people, we don't get licensed to do whatever we want because, we're unemployed and, the industry isn't in our neighborhoods and, this and that. So, yeah, what is infuriating is, and we said this over so we can move on, but is, this inconsistency in how the media treats them, in the idea that this small group of people gets treated the same as a mass global movement of Black people, and gets better coverage than us. So,
but Elle, it really reminds me of what we saw last year. And you tell me your perspectives, notably, as you are in the Maritimes, but maybe as a Black woman, your perspectives. And Dr. Vibe, you go ahead as well. But you see, the events of the Capitol last year, January 6th, Donald Trump, the white supremacy insurrection, even Joe Biden recognized that if he had been a bunch of Blacks or Latinos, the police reaction would have been quite different, bloody. When we see these images, and some of the people in this so-called freedom convoy from what police, but also others have mentioned, they were hoping, or at least they're still hoping, that this turns into a Canadian January 6th a year later. Can we just dare to imagine if it was all Black people,
Remember what
all
happened when
Indigenous people?
Yusra said she didn't want to kill white people? When Yusra said, Allah, give me strength not to kill white people? And it's like 6 years later, and every time her name comes up or BLM's name comes up, that tweet is circulating, clearly got by Michael McCormick, the head of the police association that gave it to Jerry Agar on News 1010. And ever since that tweet by a 21-year-old Black girl that was like uncovered, that has circulated for years. Please, Allah, let me not kill white people. A Black woman saying, despite all this violence that people put me through, I am praying that I will not do harm. And that is taken as she wants to kill white people. This is a violent movement. So if we have to denounce Yusra, every white person in that trucker convoy sure as hell has to denounce Paul Frome and Maxime Bernier and the Holocaust deniers, because we have to. Mm-hmm. And when we say we don't want to kill people, we get dragged for years. Mm-hmm. And then you say Trudeau on sign. Imagine if I had
a my God, you'll be in jail right now.
Imagine if I cannot move in this city without people. Like, I have literal, white supremacists track me, what I say in private posts. I have to think of every move I make, everything I say publicly. I get followed in person. They come with cameras to rallies that I'm at. I'm not even at a rally. And if something happens, it's people, L. Jones knows. Like, they are obsessed in a really sick and violent way. And I have to watch everything I see. You should see the commentary when I write a 219-page sourced academic report, and you should see what people say about me. It is completely different.
Just a quick interruption. Sarah's saying here, tantrum is the right word. And yes, the lack of consistency about whose, quote, freedom, unquote, is being defended. And also, Sarah says, mainstream media and their obsession with white grievance.
Yeah, I got to move on. This is why I said I didn't want to discuss it, because I'm like, A, it makes me angry. B, then they uncover the video and harass you. So don't put this one up on YouTube. Like shit.
I just want to remind our people, people listening, the vast majority of Canadians, whites, if you want me to put it that way, don't support this movement. The vast majority of truckers don't support this movement. Majority of Black activists, just as of Indigenous leaders, do not support. There are individual Blacks and individual Indigenous who are there claiming freedom, claiming this country not to become a dictatorship, etc. I've been in two countries that are hardcore dictatorship, Turkey and Egypt, and it's nothing close to Canada. People claim freedom because they basically are a bunch of crybabies.
I want to move to a very quick news item. My partner just got here, and he's been arguing with people too, and the same experience of like Black people coming in and being like, no, it's not racist. And he's same thing. Like, this is like the Black experience this weekend. But I want to shift for a minute. People may be familiar. Are you guys familiar with the UCLA gymnastics team? It's the most followed.
Yes.
Did you see the story?
Yes.
So this is on the eve of Black History Month. So for people who aren't familiar, this is the gymnastics team. They're massively followed on social media, and then largely followed because of their Black girls. So they have a lot of Black women who do Black routines that are extremely popular based on popular music. So people saw Nia Dennis last year with the Black Excellence routine. Marzetta Fraser did a tribute to Janet Jackson. So turns out they have a teammate, not Black, that was saying the N-word. Claims she was saying it in lyrics, but that's not the case. She was just like saying the N-word in and out of the gym, rating Black girls by how they look, like rating the team and being like the Black girls are the ugliest. And the team did nothing for months. The girls tried to address this. The women, I should say, they're not girls. They tried to address it. They tried to have meetings. They're like, oh, she needs grace and compassion because she's not well. So this girl, then finally they held a team meeting and told her how she was making them feel. And she ended up transferring out to LSU and then said that she got bullied by the Black girls. So the Black girls are now over it and came out and did a podcast with Amanda Seal. And they basically went full on. And one of the things they talk about is that school trotted them out like show ponies when they needed to look. So they get credited as the leaders of diversity. Oh, it's the most diverse sport in the NCAA. They're leading on racism. They have Black leotards. They do Black routines. This is all about the culture. And they're like, behind the scenes, you wouldn't even defend us when we were being called the N-word. And when we asked you for help, you wouldn't help us. And then when we got smeared and called bullies, when we never did anything but ask this girl to stop calling us the N-word, you guys wouldn't even make a statement and defend us. So like the Black girls aren't even traveling with the team anymore. And then, like Marzetta said, give back my awards. I don't want them. These are young, principled women. I say people go listen to this podcast. Amanda Seals' podcast with Marzetta Fraser and Sakai White. These girls air it out, and they are so brave as young women, just telling the truth about the commodification of Black talent, the commodification of Black culture. They're supposed to go up to Minneapolis on the 17th, Martin Luther King Day, and do a meet with the Minneapolis team in the city that George Floyd died, and they refused. They're like, we're not going to wear those leotards. You are not going to treat us like this. And then think that you're going to have us go to Minneapolis where George Floyd died, and you're going to trot us out, and we're going to do our little Black routines for you. They said, and they didn't go. They refused. They're like, we're not wearing those leotards. We ain't doing it. So just another example of how Black commodification, they're like, we regret giving interviews. Like we gave interviews to the school. We let them get their social media off our backs, and we're done. So I just wanted to raise that issue and shout out to those young sisters who are getting all kinds of backlash, being called bullies. Oh, she just said it in a rap song. Black people say the N-word too, which isn't at all what happened. So I just wanted to raise that, and people should go check that out and support these young sisters.
Respect to those sisters. Respect to them.
Cesar, you wanted to add one last thing before we shut it down today about the Africa Cup of Nations?
If you don't mind, Dr. Vibe, I'd like very quickly Africa Cup of Nations and the situation in Mali, very quickly. So regarding the Africa Cup of Nations, I'm not a fan of it because basically Africa has a lot of issues where money, aka public funding, needs to be spent on. However, the competition, of course, has happened. Of course, it's bringing people together. Let's hope there's not going to be some Africa Cup of Nations COVID bubble, whatever it's called. But the racism, the comments towards notably Black Africans from Northern Africans in terms of talking about the conditions of the grass, the state, etc., etc. But as well, thank you so much, Sister Sarah Onyengo, the fact of some of the issues that have happened in terms of violence, but also some of the tensions that have come. And even in terms of Black people, I'm thinking Cameroonians and Ivorian fans, some of the enmities and false controversies that they create. My African friends who are listening, please, please, please do not fall for this type of tensions. And the other thing I wanted to quickly mention was the situation in Mali. There's been a coup, but is it really a coup if the government is a Western-backed government in Africa? Is it a coup when Black/Africans stand up to evict such a regime, they take power, and they decide to cut ties with France? They decide to cut ties with other African nations that are really sustained by the West, and as such, they dare to say enough of ongoing neo-colonialism. Colonel Goita has my salute. He doesn't have my salute in terms of, dictatorship or etc., etc. I stand for democracy, but you cannot have democracy in neo-colonialism. That is a lie that too many Western regimes want us to believe. And yes, there you go. Sister Sarah mentioned it. Burkina Faso, many African countries, there's basically a wave of African pride and Pan-Africanism that is rising in Africa. There's a new generation. These guys are young. They're in their 40s, and they're saying enough is enough. They grew up with the readings of Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, but also Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, and they're saying enough is enough. Neocolonialism, I hope, will end in our time.
Well, great way to end up the conversation. And Sarah, who is not with us physically, but chiming in with her comments and saying that kudos to the brave and principled athletes in regards to the story that Elle mentioned. She also says condolences to the lived ones of the fans who died in Cameroon. Big up the Cameroonian team also, and a coup in Burkina Faso. So, folks, that is it for today. Not a lot of topics, but we went in deep. So as always, I'd like to say thank you to both these wonderful individuals and Sarah, who's not here, for taking their time to share with us. And as always, Elle, how can people get in contact with you?
Just email. I don't know. I'm not giving it out this episode. I don't know who's going to find it.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that. Cesar, are you wanting to give out any contact information?
First of all, allow me to salute Kevin Friday, my friend. He was actually at my place last night. He's one of the contributors to some of my comments today. But yeah, reach me on Facebook, Cesar Remy, CESAR space RIMY. And remember, Tuesday, February 1st, Black History Month, Ottawa U Faculty of Arts. The English section, the English conference is at 10 a.m. and there is a French conference at 3 p.m.
All right. There it is. It's flashing on and off, but you saw it enough. So thank you to both of you. As always, I am Dr. Vibe. I'm host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers. It's co-sponsored by Delvin Care and Dads Central. I'd like to thank everyone who watched this live or watch it on the replay or will listen to it on the replay. As always, I close off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Thank you to BIA Media for the production. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good. See you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.